48-hour art check, round 156.
Yes.
Just a ridiculous amount of stupid technology stuff that's going on right
I know.
now. But we are here in
We are here.
our old format of split screen, two up.
Yeah. So we have some issues with Discord, and perhaps we're becoming boomers or something. I don't know, but but yeah, there was much havoc trying to figure out what exactly in the hell we were doing.
It was all my fault. I
No.
couldn't. No one could hear me.
It was no, we could hear you. You couldn't hear us. It was on your
Oh,
end,
yeah.
but I don't think it was your
Yeah.
fault.
Yeah.
I just think the gremlins in the machine didn't want you to do something or whatever. Matthew Instrom's in the chats. What's up, man?
All right.
Okay.
Welcome.
And I just realized I haven't tested any of the buttons, so we'll just see what happens.
Let's do it.
All right, Scott. Hey, that button worked. What have you gotten done in the last little bit?
Let's see. Last 48 hours, I edited and recorded a video and uploaded it and everything. I've been working on my comic maker toolkit. I did the logo for it, and I'm starting to do some of the layouts to kind of show what you get with it and everything. And then I'm trying to create some videos. What I want to do is I want to kind of record me building some of like either an illustration or using different parts of that so that I can kind of put out a video once it's done that shows everything involved and everything. So yeah, that's what I've been working on.
Cool.
Nice.
That looks awesome. I like the colors you chose for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Josh, how about you? What have you gotten done? And we've got Tim in the chat as well.
Hi, Tim. I have managed to do the type pencils for the majority of the next page of quarterly stories, and so I should have the type pencils, like that second panel, completely done with the type pencils and ready to start inks by the next time we check. Hopefully, we'll see. But yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I have done a bunch of things that I can't show. I've been meeting with a potentially large client for some motion graphics for the medical industry. I'm under NDA, so I think that's as much as I can say. And then I got the storyboards and the kind of rough character design for several of the characters done for the animated short that I'm going to finish once the semester gets out. And I have kind of those aren't full storyboards; those are like just roughs, and so that's kind of like story beats. But I narrowed it down to like the number of scenes and scene transitions and timing, and so now I've just got to get like the movement kind of sketched out, and then start building the characters. So,
Awesome.
yeah, pretty excited about it. It's actually kind of a funny story. The character, there's like, I don't know. Are you guys familiar with Marco Polo? Not not the Explorer, but the app.
Oh,
Okay.
I think I was on it at one point, but I
Yeah.
don't have it
So
anymore.
both sides of my family, I would never use it, but both sides of my family are on Marco Polo, and my nephew is obsessed with insects and found this insect and was just videoing it, and I can't even remember what it was, but that was the catalyst for that. Is he was like, I think Uncle Cory will like this, and normally I kind of skip a bunch of those or like 2x them, so I don't have to listen to it all. But it was kind of fun because I've been struggling with like the right amount of like vulnerability and kind of weakness of what I'm looking for that particular character. And it just turned out it was crawling on my nephew's porch. So anyway, kind of fun. But how about challenges, Scott?
I don't know, nothing major. Yeah, I guess just trying to. I mean, it seems like I've got time, but it's like maybe I'm not using it wisely enough. It just seems like I'm not. I mean, it's not like I don't feel like I'm wasting my time, but maybe there's ways to be a little more productive. I don't know. Like I should. It seems like I should be getting further along with some of the stuff. I don't know what that means. Maybe I'm working in slow motion or something.
Yeah, interesting. I've been there.
Yeah, I relate to that a lot.
My immediate response to that is like let's like dive in and troubleshoot this, but
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know. I've been there, man. That sucks. How about you, Josh?
So we had two relatively large earthquakes over the weekend, and that was a challenge. So like the first one I think was like a 6, and it's not like super close. It's like 70 miles away, but that's pretty close in terms of like earthquakes.
Yeah.
And then there were a bunch of aftershocks, and then like that was on Thursday, and then on Saturday, I felt like the earthquake again, and I kind of went in. It was pretty mild, and so I like just went in and told my wife like, "Hey, you might want to put the harnesses on the dogs. I think I felt the earthquake again." And we were kind of debating whether there was an earthquake or not, and then suddenly the house just starts going woo, like that. Like it felt like we were on a wave, and a couple pictures fell down, and so I grabbed Ben and like we kind of got out of the house and stuff, which you're not supposed to do unless you're in the suburbs. You have like a clear street, and that's a really good safe place to be. But in the city, do not leave where you're at.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was crazy. It was like a 7.1, which I guess is just to put that thing in perspective. The Northridge quake was like a 7, so
Right.
Wow.
and that like flattened buildings and stuff. So
Well,
luckily,
7 is it's. I mean, it's on a scale of like 1 to 10, and each one is exponentially larger. So it's not like yeah. So 7 is huge. That's
it was
ridiculous.
massive. It was the biggest quake I think we've had in 20 years, and bigger than the Northridge quake was. So we're lucky that it wasn't like in a populated area. It was in like a mildly populated area that was like spread out. So a lot of the dangers of an earthquake are like the aftermath, and like kind of just condensed areas don't do too well. Most areas don't do too well, but condensed areas are like the real where you start seeing the really crazy stuff. But yeah, so that was a crazy kind of challenge to like do that. But it was funny because the day of the earthquake, I still got my comics done. So so if you guys are out there and you're not working on your comics, like, hey, like I worked on my comics like about an hour after a massive earthquake. So what do you got?
That's funny.
Yeah, but that was a challenge. And then like just the typical challenges outside of that, just work. We had family up, so that was quite a bit. But I actually relate a lot to what Scott was talking about, because just where I'm at in my comic, it's probably about 4 pages left after this page, and it feels like this whole thing has just been in slow motion for years. So I relate to that, because I do have these moments of like, shouldn't I be further? Like this is
Yeah.
like I'm spending a lot of time on it, but it's just going by at the pace of a slug, So I relate to what Scott was saying.
Yeah. And I do that a lot too, where like sometimes I'll be figuring something out, or I'll be working on something, and I look and it's such an incremental amount of progress, and I'm like, how did that take 3 hours or whatever it is? It's like, I don't even know if I could show or explain to anybody the progress that I made. I know that I moved the project forward, but like it's such a small step. I don't know. That's always really frustrating.
Yeah.
So, for me, we bought a car, so I had to drive down to Utah. It's about a 4-hour drive, and then we're at my in-laws' place, and my nephew got baptized, and so my parents came up. They're serving a mission in the Hopi reservations. They were able to come up. Anyway, so kind of whirlwind family reunion traveling thing, also like negotiating car dealerships. And I met like the spectrum of car salesmen, from like the lying like douchebag Jim Bro to like the actual like genuine human being. This guy who moved from like being LAPD to, he just didn't like it and just got into car sales. He was a super nice guy. Anyway, that's my first car payment since 2008. So we've had no car payment since then, but it's got a Honda Pilot, and then drove 2 cars back and all that stuff. So just a lot of like being on the road and out. And then some client work, finished up some client work and started some more client work. And that's always time consuming for me because I'm not used to the ins and outs of that because it's so infrequent. Like it's like 3 or 4 times a year rather than consistent. So I'm always like, where did I put my creative brief? Like where did I save that file that I always send to everybody? Or, like I have to like revisit my contract or something every time. So there's always that type of stuff as well. But if I land this job and it goes the way that I anticipate it going, I might be able to pay off my car. So that'd be cool.
Right.
Yeah.
So
that's one thing that I always kind of take for granted after having done this for a while. But one of the cool things about being a professional artist is like whether you have a day job or not, if you're in a pinch for cash, you have the skill set that you can actually utilize and make extra cash with.
yeah.
Whereas a lot of people at their day jobs, like let's say you teach English, it's kind of hard to find a side hustle teaching English. You know what I mean? Maybe tutoring, but it's like you can't really go online and just find like, oh, there we go. There's my side hustle for like the next few days.
Yeah.
I think that's one really cool thing about being like a commercial artist is we're kind of like almost like being a plumber or something like that, where you have a specialty, so you can kind of seek work to your full potential. Like so you can actually make like increase what you make, even if you're on like a salary job. And I think that's pretty excellent. We should enjoy the fact that we can do that.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah,
it's way cool. So how about plans, Scott?
I'm just going to try to continue working on this comic maker toolkit. I mean, that's kind of my big goal to get that. And then after that, the website. And then I'm sure in the meantime, I do have some freelance and I'm waiting to hear back on the project that we're working on to see kind of what the next step on that is. And I mean, I think the first portion sounds like it's done, but then they want some other stuff too. So hopefully you won't be too busy with your new project if you get it to work on this thing.
Yeah, I should be all right.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So
because the semester ends in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks, and so then I'll have full-time availability for that. But yeah, how about you, Josh? Plans?
All right. So I kind of mentioned it before, but yeah, I want to finish the tight pencils for this page and be at the point where I'm inking by the next time we do an art check. So that would be the ideal, which is kind of, I think, feasible. So, and then aside from that, like my wife and kid are visiting relatives in Utah. And so they're going to be gone for like a good week and a half, which means I'm probably going to binge watch Stranger Things for the 3rd season.
I already did that.
Yeah. And I can because I don't have a 5-year-old here. I'm bummed, but at the same time, I'm like, I know there's going to be like a day or two of just doing irresponsible things like binge watching a whole TV show. Because I used to do that all the time. What's up?
Playing Rocket League.
Yep. You know, you might convince me. I might have to.
Yeah.
I gotta look into like getting a controller and seeing if I can make that happen.
It's good times. Good times.
Yeah, and then like other than that, just hopefully taking advantage of that like window where, you know, like while it's a bummer not having family, like it's also nice to not have that distraction for a brief period of time, like on a level of just getting stuff done. So I might be able to take that as an opportunity. If I do it right, I'll do that. If not, I might binge Metroid and see if I can actually beat it.
Super Metroid or Metroid?
Just old school Metroid.
Yeah. Super Metroid is where it's at. I love that game. Uh, whenever my family goes out of town, I go one of two ways, and it's never in the middle. I'm either hyper productive, where I work for like 6 to 12 hour stints,
Yeah.
or I want to be hyper productive and end up like 3 days later going, what? I haven't done anything. What is going on? I've gone to bed at 3 in the morning every night, and I have no idea what's going on with my life. Like my sleep schedule weirds out. It's like it's just totally like because no one's like, hey, go to bed.
Yeah. No, I'm totally expecting that. I'm expecting to have a wacky sleep schedule and hopefully be able to keep the productivity. Hopefully you can have both, right? You can have both.
Yeah, yeah, you can. So, plans for me, I will. It really depends. So, depending on a couple different clients that may or may not pull some triggers, that might bump some plans. And in the meantime, I'm just going to continue to prep. I think I'm going to do, I don't know if it's going to, I haven't looked at the calendar. I don't know if it's going to be a full 100 days of animation, but I'm going to do a daily animation challenge because I want to finish this thing. And so I'm considering like what I'm doing right now, kind of day zero as kind of like prep. And so I'm going to get like more full storyboards and then an animatic at that point. And then from the animatic, I'll do character design and asset design. And then from there, rig. And so that's kind of like the next couple of weeks. And just whatever I have time for between now and Wednesday is what I'll get done. So.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah. So anyway, okay, we want to jump into the topic.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, today's topic is technology sucks, and I don't know why it doesn't work. And get off my lawn. My back hurts. I don't know. Anyway, so we had talked about this beforehand. We're gonna do. Oh yeah. Okay. Today's topic is you're only as good as your recent. I'm try that again. Today's topic is you're only as good as your most recent project, and so kind of the what have you done for me lately idea where there's a lot of people out there who they peak early and or maybe they don't peak early, but then they plateau or fizzle out early, and they like you hear them going to conventions or applying for jobs and they're showing stuff that is like years old, and it's like, that's great, but what have you done recently? And I think that's important for a number of reasons. One is that it shows that you're constantly producing and constantly evolving. And two is it kind of puts you at like front of mind for things. And so like I don't go looking for client work. And I don't get a lot of client work because of that. But also, when I do get client work, I get client work that is very applicable to what I'm doing currently because I'm showing what I'm doing currently. And I try to make what I'm doing currently be impressive enough that people are like, I would like to pay him to do that for me. And so I think those are kind of two main things. What do you guys think? What do you guys think of the idea of you're only as good as your most recent project?
So I can chime in, I guess. I would say that I think that with art in general, like there's really not a lot of place for like your laurels, and I can sense a lot of hesitation from people, just like especially when I used to teach and I talk about this to like students, like where they'd kind of be like, yeah, but there are those projects that are like a big boom, like project. Um, But I mean, I think a good case in point of this is like the NCS, the director of Mulan did a talk,
Mm-hmm.
and he was just kind of stopped mid talk and was like, "Well, you guys know, it's a room full of like cartoonists and illustrators. You guys know we're all only as good as our latest project." This is a guy who was nominated for an Oscar, so it's
Yeah.
like if an Oscar nominee feels like they're only as good as their latest project, and that's how the industry is, I think that would kind of just be a good hint that like you kind of can't just rest on your laurels, because they don't go very far in the sense of um I think like accomplishments are great in art, but the world of art right now is not a very like remembering world. We're not kind of like sculpting a great statue and it's like left in the town square, and like it's I don't know, it's something about society now and kind of the fast pace of it, um, and the fact that we're peddling in images, and images are kind of temporal, and people have this tendency to want the next thing. And so if you're kind of not putting out the next thing, you can end up getting pretty buried by people who are currently out there putting out like the next thing. That doesn't mean you shouldn't strive to make stuff that would be slightly permanent in whatever way it can. It just means that when you're doing that, that's like a forever pursuit as an artist until I think you pretty much pass away.
Yeah.
That's got to be kind of like the chase, is like to constantly be putting out work and hopefully be putting out great work, so it's stuff that's memorable. But otherwise I think you can run the risk of being kind of that band from the 90s that had like one great song and fooled people into buying CDs. And as we get further and further into the digital age, that's just a much harder hustle to pull.
Yeah.
And so, and similarly with art, that's a harder hustle to pull. I think there was probably an era in comics where if you had a good enough cover, you could really sell a lot of issues. But I think now, where everybody's kind of expecting content for free, especially with like comics or something like that, people are going to look beyond the veneer of just like a cool looking splash page, and kind of look into the content that you're providing, and is it consistent, so that was kind of a rambly way to kind of touch on that, but I definitely feel like there's a lot of truth to that, like where you should be proud of the work you've done, but if you rest on the work that you've done, you can get left behind pretty quickly in this field.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of I'm trying to think of the last project that I did. I mean, it's weird because I mean I'm doing freelance stuff, but a lot of that stuff, like kind of like you said, Cory, that I don't put in my portfolio. So I don't know if I'd necessarily count that.
But would you use that to get more freelance work? Like if you're in a pitch, if you're in a pitch
probably.
meeting and you can say, oh yeah, because this is what I do is I will often say like, yeah, I just finished this, like the project that you and I did together. I'll use it in class and I'll say, hey, I just finished this animation last week, and that's something that kind of keeps it relevant. And that one I am planning on putting.
Yeah, I would too, because I mean and because it's an entirely different new way that you're animating things, and I mean you obviously learned a lot through that. I have some of my recent freelance projects that I could probably put in my portfolio, but I'm still thinking of getting, and again, a lot of it just has to do with time, but I'm still thinking of, I really should integrate or when I go to redo my website, either change the sort of gallery section. I might just change that to like work instead of gallery. I don't know, but start putting in more of my personal stuff in there. Because the only reason why I didn't do that is because you can, if you like go to my store, you can see all my personal stuff. But I kind of feel weird about sending people to my store, because obviously all that stuff is meant to purchase. And sometimes I'll say, go to my store. I'm not trying to get you to buy anything. That's where the stuff I do, my best stuff or the stuff that I like to do is on there as prints and things. But I need to pull some of my better stuff off of there and at least sprinkle it in with some of the freelance stuff that I've done. And then I even thought of, again, part of me is not really looking for freelance stuff, but it does come my way and it is helpful. So, I mean, and if all went away, then I'd be in trouble. So, I'm thinking maybe I should do what I always recommend people is just, pick a project or product and create artwork for that, something that I would like to work on, and I could even, take existing stuff and kind of do a mock-up and actually put that on a product. So, so there's stuff like that, but as far as, my most recent work, as far as comic book work, I'm really happy with the work that I did for the anthology. So I would, if somebody wanted to see some stuff, I'd show that. And I think that's kind of leveled up, it kind of, because with Young and the Dead, I went with a lot simpler style. So it's kind of nice to show some little more detailed stuff. And so, but I want to, not with Young and the Dead, because I want to keep that consistent, but with my prints and things, I really want to, kind of go a little deeper on some of that stuff. And I got an idea for a triptych that I want to do, but right now it's kind of just focusing on these digital products, which is another thing. But yeah, so I don't know. It's kind of, I definitely think, obviously you need to keep improving yourself and putting that artwork out there. I might not be the best example of that because I haven't really updated that, but the website is on my to-do list. So that will definitely happen when I get to that.
I think you bring up two really good points, though. One, I was at Adobe Max a few years ago, and Dan Stiles, who is known for gig posters, he gave a talk about self-plagiarization, and it really stuck with me. But basically, he talked about companies being risk adverse, and so when you're being hired by a company, you're not actually being hired by a company. You're being hired by a person who has likely had to convince other people that you're the right way to go. And so they're taking a risk of their personal livelihood on the choice that they've made with you. And so typically most people are not going to be like, you're a good artist. I've never seen you do this thing that I want to do, but I think you can. They're going to say, hey, that thing that I saw you do over there, I'd like you to do that for my company. And he had a ton of examples where he was just messing around and doing exactly what you're saying, Scott, is I'd like to do something like this. And so he would make something like that, just kind of playing with something. And then AT&T would call him up and be like, hey, we'd like you to do that for us, but put our logo on it and put our phone over here and zoom out and do it this way. And they kind of are he called it self-plagiarization, which I really like that idea. And so companies will love it if you self-plagiarize, and they will pay you for it because the proof exists that you can do it, meaning that you've removed that risk. The other thing that you brought up that I think is really important and that I need to do a way better job of is case studies. And I'm planning on doing that for this animation that we just did, is do a big write-up and show the process and talk about your thinking and share the challenges that you overcame, and basically take people through the creative brief. The client wanted people to feel this and wanted this done, and blah 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 blah, and this is what I brought to the table, and these are the creative choices that I made to solve these problems. The reason for that is there are a number of reasons, but one is that it's a really engaging way to show your work that is more likely to last in people's minds than seeing an image on Instagram when you're just oh, cool, pretty thing. And then you continue to scroll past 100 other images. If you're doing a case study and somebody takes the time to watch it, listen to it, read it, or any combination of those things, they're actually getting to know your voice, your process, and your thinking. And through that, they get to know you a little bit. And if you do that in an authentic way, they're going to want to work with you because they feel like they know you. And they're going to want to work with you because they're well, I see all these pretty images and stuff, but I want something that means something. And it doesn't mean that the other things that they've seen don't mean anything, but they don't know what they mean because they haven't been explained, like how I did this giant mood board and then how I spent all this time, sketching, and I filled up like, 3 whiteboards full of words trying to figure out kind of unusual combinations to, like you go through your creative process. I've had people hire me because they say, I really like how you think. Well, they've never met me. The only way that they know how I think, like we've never had a conversation before, is because I do a case study and they saw the case study and they're like, I want to be part of that creative process. I want you to put that type of thinking into my brand because, I'm really good at widgets, but I'm not good at creativity and I want my thing to be unique. And so case studies are huge. And so I don't think it's just that, our most recent work should be really good, but I think our most recent work should be communicated well to others.
Yes. And if anyone wants good examples of that, just go to Behance. I think they do it best. If you really want to see like either case studies or just the way, and it's not all like that, but usually the stuff that rises to the top is all, it'll show the sketch and it'll take the project from the idea all the way to the finished project. And I really want to do that as well too. I've done a few things, but like that. But yeah, I basically like all my portfolio pieces to be like that because it's super effective. I love.
That's Kahish did on her entire site, and it bugged me. This is so cool.
Yeah.
She also, I think, has help because I know. I recently saw her speak, and I know that she pays more than I make in a year in childcare. So I think she's doing well enough to have some help with her website.
Yeah, for sure. So like to me, the case study thing also functions on another level too, because you're kind of priming your client. So your client, or potential client, when they're looking through your portfolio, when they go through the process with you, they've kind of seen it before. So they know, it kind of mitigates the risk that you're talking about with the client. The fear of risk. Sorry, my dog was wanting a lap. But it mitigates that fear of risk, because they'll know that this process leads to a good product.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people, when they hire creatives, it's kind of a struggle we all have, but it's every once in a while, somebody who's never really worked with a creative before, when there's a need for revisions, sometimes they'll just kind of lose their mind. Why wasn't it perfect the second I got it,
Yeah.
And they don't quite realize that perfection is kind of a collaborative thing and really reliant on rounds of revisions, hopefully few, but also really reliant on communication, just like anything else. And so kind of priming a client for that is not a bad idea either. So it seems like a really cool idea actually to kind of have that. I'd like to start doing more of that kind of thing, and definitely want to, maybe I should add this to my goals, but I would like to by this weekend at least put another blog post up.
Yeah.
Because I do think blogs are still effective and engaging, and I think it's just something to kind of every once in a while do, because I have noticed that blogs can have a longer lifespan than video sometimes. I'd
like to do more blogs too, but it just takes me forever to write and everything. But
and I really like the video blog kind of combo. A lot of my blogs are here's the thing I made, and here's 3 time-lapse videos where I talked about random stuff of me making these things, and then here's a couple images, and so it's kind of personally, I think you should never have, if you're talking about vertical real estate in a blog, you should never have more writing than you do images or video. And I like more of an 80-20 situation where, you have 80% of the vertical space is taken up by something visual, and 20-30% is taken up by writing. But the writing is super important, because when people search for, I want this type of thing, they're more likely to come across something that is written there than not. And your images, if you do like the metadata and stuff along with the blog post and along with the SEO that kind of goes with the blog post, it can kind of the whole thing can rise to the top in search. And another thing I've heard along those lines is that, and I need to be better at doing this, using like local geotags on social media, which I've been hesitant to do. But it'll also, like, if people are searching for things, it's going to show them more relevant stuff to their location as well. And so, yeah. And then on the other side, I'm reading a book right now that makes me want to like unplug the electricity from my house and go and live in a cave. But
which I'm going to need to add that to my list after the crazy book I'm reading.
So I'm reading. We need to do a book show. We need to do a book episode.
We should.
Yeah. But
next episode, let's do it.
Okay. Because I'm in the middle of reading two things. I'm in the middle of reading Surveillance Capitalism, which is like the mutation of industrialization of capitalism has mutated into, instead of governments being the threat to the populace, it's companies being the threat to the populace. And we're trafficking in privacy right now. And like the new oil spill is data breaches. Anyway, that's really interesting. And then on a happier note, I'm reading this Illusion of Life, which is kind of like the history of animation as told through.
Oh, I think I have that book.
Oh, have you read it yet?
I've looked through it. I haven't read it.
Yeah, it's not a fast read, and I'm only a few pages in, but it's fascinating. It's really.
Yeah, I have to remember to go get mine and see if it's the same book or not. It's got Pinocchio on the cover. Is that kind of walking? Mm-hmm. It kind of shows different stages.
Yeah, so it starts with like sketches, and then it shows him kind of like flatted, and then around the front you see him kind of like animating.
Yep, I got that book.
So. I'm reading really weird stuff. I'm reading the Mueller report. I'm reading
some light reading to.
Yeah, and then I'm counterbalancing that with some really light reading, The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. Which is really dark. And then actually my really like my honest kind of throwaway book that I'm reading is The Vex Generation. It's a continuation of the Magic 2.0 series that's all about wizards. So and very humorous. So so we should do a book episode.
Okay.
We should do a book episode.
Book episode coming up.
Yeah, like why are we reading what we're reading? Should you read it?
That means I gotta find time to read a book.
That's what audiobooks are for.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I was gonna say like
mostly doing podcasts
my
lately,
recent bookshelf.
Yeah.
So
I haven't listened to an audiobook in a little while either. So yeah, I should do that again.
Well,
it's harder now that I'm don't have the commute.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, just let me introduce you to Brandon Sanderson, and then we'll see you in about 6 months.
Yes. Yes. Join us. I still haven't finished Edge Dancer either. I'm like midway through. So.
Oh, Edge Dancer's fun, man.
I think I just like went hard for all those books, and now I'm like I need a break, something light like The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich.
Yeah. Oh man, I can't. This is bad. Oh, I'm in the middle of. I feel like we're doing the book episode right now, but
I know. Maybe we should do to be continued.
Okay.
What else is Cory reading?
Yes, I've just finished several books. I will tell you about them on Wednesday. See, that's something that they tell us to do that I never do. Is like tease the audience so that they come back for more. If you'd like more rambling, incoherent nonsense about the things that I'm reading, then come back on Wednesday on Josh's channel.
Yes, and it'll be productive and amazing, and you'll have just a million ideas for your own work.
I'll actually have like my Goodreads channel pulled up so that I can remember the titles and authors of things.
I love it.
All right, so anything else on You're Only as Good as Your latest project?
I mean, the one thing I'd say is like it's also important to like. That doesn't. I really do want to focus on the qualification that, like, while that is true, it doesn't take away from what you've accomplished. And I do think as creatives, because of the fact that we're only as good as our latest project, it's easy for us to kind of forget, or when we're in the middle of a big success, to even kind of absorb it or
Yeah.
enjoy it when it's happening, because we're on to the next thing.
Oh, I'm
And
so
so,
bad at that.
yeah, so I struggle with that too. So I would say, like, it is important to like make milestones and kind of count your victories and like have a sense of your history and like what you have gotten done, because that'll get you through a lot of the resistance stuff that we talk about, kind of fighting, where let's say you're hitting a brick wall or whatever, you can be like, well, there was this one time that I did this. So it's good to have that personal history and those milestones. It's just, I think there's a difference between celebrating those and then resting on them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I like what you're saying there, because I think there's some dangers, kind of like with most things, that if you take this to an extreme, that you're never able to really like enjoy this. And I mean, if you're doing this and you're not enjoying it, and I don't mean like having fun necessarily, but like getting some fulfillment out of it, then there are easier ways to like survive and make money and stuff. That, if you're not getting fulfillment, then go do something else that's easier where you also don't get fulfillment, and it's fine. But like, but it's true, because if I'm looking at that and I'm playing like the comparison game, where comparison is the thief of joy, where I'm constantly comparing my output to other people's output, or I'm comparing my work to other people's work, and not in a healthy way where I'm trying to close that gap, where I'm like, I'd like to get better at this, let's look at people that are doing that better than I am, but doing it as a way of kind of bludgeoning myself so that I don't enjoy it, so that I continue to, the next project needs to be way better. And oh shoot, sorry. So that type of thing. And so really, like, there's the idea of not being in the moment and not enjoying that. And take it to the other extreme. You stay in the moment so long that like 3 years go by and you made an 8-second animation 3 years ago, and it's like, well, that was cool, but what have you done since then? And the other thing is, I often find myself not doing the case study, not doing the promotion of the project, just speeding on to the next thing, because I'm worried about, like I don't take the time I need to market it and get the word out and stuff, because I don't want to like lose momentum, and I feel like I sacrifice a lot of the viewership that I could get on the altar of like momentum. And I just keep thinking of like, I mean, I knocked out like a 40-page hand illustrated children's book in ink in like less than 6 months. And I think there's maybe like 30 people that know about it, because I immediately jumped onto the next project rather than promoting it and doing what I needed to do to get it out there and stuff.
Yeah, I relate to that. And that's kind of one of the things I'm trying to keep in mind as I get this done, is like, if I start just working on the next book and I don't really hustle this like as the book that I spent like these years on, then it's like, it's just going to kind of fall, like, it'll be like a drop in the ocean.
Yeah.
So like, that is something I got to keep in mind, like that the real work is going to kind of start when I get this done, and I have to do the book design, and then like start hustling and figuring out how to print it, and how to sell it and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard to remember that, right? Because it's like you do get in this flow as a creative where you are on to the next thing, and it's hard to kind of get in that habit of being like, hey, I did this thing,
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like I show my progress as I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And sometimes that takes the steam out of the engine or the wind out of the sails at the end, where it's like, and now I need to do this significant push. And a lot of that, I just feel like I that's why publicists and agents and stuff exist, but I don't have any of those. So, and I don't know. I don't, and so I've still got to kind of do the groundwork. I really should just, you know, do a Kickstarter, print it for the 20 people that back it, call it good. Because at least that would be better than nothing, which is what's going on right now with it. Other than, I mean, I'm I'm coloring pages here or there, but it's just sat. I think it was like a year ago.
Yeah.
So
Well, maybe we can make that like a 48-hour art check thing. Like when I'm wrapped up with this, maybe we finish our book designs and run some Kickstarters and get these things made, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, I think that's a good idea. That's a good idea.
And then we can act as each other's publicists.
So we've got a question in the chats. Kayla's asking, would you recommend to split your time between promoting the last project and starting the new one, or just dedicate time to promoting the last one for a bit? An interesting question. So the idea of, do you concurrently try to start the next project and promote the last one, or do you say for the next X amount of time, I'm just in promotion mode? And I'm going to defer to you guys because you have way more experience. So what do you, Scott and Josh, what do you think?
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm curious what Scott's thoughts on that are.
Um, yeah, it's just for me. It seems like I'm always constantly, jumping. Like as soon as I finish one thing, just jumping on to the next one, and um, so I don't know. Yeah, it's. I think I'm. If I had to say one thing that I need to improve on, it's just like promotion in general, because like I'll do a thing and then I really I should be promoting that thing, but it's like now I'm going to create the next thing and hope kind of hope that people will just naturally gravitate to it. So I don't know if that actually answers the question though.
No, it kind of does.
Kind of answers the question that you're in the same boat as the two of us, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I struggle with a similar thing because like the thing that I want to try to do, and we'll see if I'm effective at it. But I do want to try to dedicate a few months at least to really building a ground game for my comic, and to like designing the book and to like really all that after completion stuff, um, and then really hustling and trying to kind of get it out there and hit that hard for like almost a year. But I don't see myself now. If I did that and didn't do any projects, I could probably sell a lot of books.
Yeah.
But I think what I'd end up with is a scenario where I have a lot of books and nothing left.
Right.
Like it's one of those resting on your laurels things where like I have a lot of products I could be pushing now. Like I got an unexpected kind of shipment of some extras of the Monty Python posters, and so like I could put those up on my site and hustle those right now. But I I I want to be continually making. Um, and then I think that what I'm going to do is try to integrate the promotion in more. So, like for instance, between books, I think I'll probably spend a good like 3 months just doing mainly promotion and mild ground game for the next project,
Yeah.
or small projects, like little incremental projects, just to keep sharp. Because like the last thing I think any of us want as creatives is to kind of like lose momentum or lose the like kind of drive to create. So
Yeah, and I think for me, part of it is I've seen people that are way more known and way more successful than I am, and they dedicate specific amounts of time to promoting the work. Um, Also, I think though I have different goals than some of those people. I mean, I'm thinking like Jason Brubaker and things like that, where I mean, when he is when he's doing a Kickstarter, he is doing a Kickstarter, and that is, he spends 40 hours a week doing that Kickstarter,
yeah,
and in prep for it and during it and everything. And he moves a lot of books. The dude moves a lot of books. For me, I could do that, and I'm going to make, $1 for every sticker that I sell. I'm going to make, $3 for every shirt that I sell. Or I can just show the work that I'm working on, continue to make new work, learn, get better, and then, make $1,000 on a client project or $3,000 on a client project. And so it's kind of like, I think if I were to take, kind of the short term versus the long term gain, I'm not sure which one would pay off more in the long term, but definitely in the short term, the rare and occasional high paying client project is way
Yeah.
better for me and my brand than the 50 to 100 people that might buy, my really low margin items that I have.
Yeah. Uh, and I think it depends on what you have, like in the scenario that I'm going to have a book, so it's like it, and I think with your kids' book too, it might be worth a real push and like maybe
Yeah.
some dedicated time
And it,
because uh,
I agree because I think in a book it's a more intimate experience that is a longer amount of consumption than
yeah,
a sticker. People will look at a sticker and they will enjoy that sticker for several seconds before they move on. But if they sit down with a book, my kid's book versus your, pretty intense autobiographic novel, those are different experiences and amounts of time as well. But I still think they're going to get to know me as an artist and writer better through, sitting down and reading a book than they would, you know, getting a sticker or occasionally wearing my t-shirt.
yeah, and I think that's a key thing to kind of pinpoint because I've done the whole hustle where, you're just getting tons of people to buy your shirts and stuff like that, and you're making an okay living, but it's just kind of like endless promotion of stuff. And like to me, that's not something I'd seek out, but I get a different kind of kick out of actual readers and actual people like following the comic. And I think that to me is more like the market that I'd want to dedicate time to kind of promoting, to.
Yeah. And for
But I
me,
think,
I think the reason that I do things, this is a weird reason, but I actually think it would probably resonate with a lot of creators if they haven't thought about it. Thinking about it is really interesting. And I think this can happen with a sticker or a mural or a poster just as easily as a book, or a T-shirt or anything else. For me, I get a real amount of satisfaction if someone thinks differently because they've encountered my work. And so
yeah,
if they come across a concept that they hadn't thought about, or they've come across a concept that they disagree with, and then they alter their opinion, or they're introduced to an issue that they were unaware of, or they just have a different perception of something, that's really fascinating to me because that is a lasting impact that lasts for generations because that person, is going to talk to other people about those things and is going to have children and is going to have relationships and is going to write things and do things. And there's the possibility that your sticker, your comic book, or your novel, or your poster, or whatever, shaped some of the way that they view the world and how they communicate. That's fascinating to me, and so I kind of regret bringing up money because I'm not doing it for that because I've got that covered with my day job.
yeah.
I just like
Although it
the
does for,
possibility. Sorry, go ahead.
does for paying off cars though.
Yeah, yeah. If I could do that, that would be pretty awesome. So
Yeah.
it's a long shot, but I try not to. I'm trying to not downplay what I'm hopeful for because then if it happens, people are like, well, you didn't really care anyway, and nobody gets to celebrate with you because you've kind of downplayed it.
Yeah.
But I am really excited. If I do that and I can pay that off in a month rather than in 2 years, that would be phenomenal. So I am excited about that happening if it happens.
Yeah, and I think the thing I like about books too is like Scott I think can attest to this too. It's like gradually throughout over years you've been kind of building this thing. So when you have that like collected work, it's like the nice thing about that too is that that's something that um I do think like having a catalog, like a back catalog of stories would be a pretty nice feeling. Like that's like your own work, where you to me I'm not going to be very hesitant to like promote stuff that I've written in the past as opposed to stuff I've drawn in the past. Like promoting like a design I did like 10 years ago doesn't feel all that great, but promoting like a book that I wrote, illustrated, and spent a lot of time on, that's like a little piece of me at that time. I
Yeah.
don't, I don't mind promoting that. So it's So that's maybe that's a topic for another time, but like
No,
the
I
one,
think you bring up another really good aspect of kind of the latest project thing is
yeah,
that putting out another project recently that somebody loves is a gateway to your older projects as well. And so,
exactly.
like if somebody comes across, you know, issue 4 of The Young and the Dead, well, they're going to be like, I wonder what else this guy has done, and they're going to see Mad Science Supply Company. They're going to see the first 3 issues and whatever. And like, if they come across your most recent work and they like it, then they will seek out more of that. And so it's kind of
Yeah,
this introduction. And like sometimes I remember reading the foreword to a book I just finished reading. And the guy said, I had read this book in high school and I just reread it. But he was saying this book that I wrote, like it was way different than the rest of the books. It was basically like a history of cathedrals, but he did it through like fiction, like this fictional brick builder that kind of travels around. And he's like, it was nothing like the spy thrillers that I had written, but I felt really impressed that I needed to write it, and so I wrote it, and then no one cared. And then all of a sudden, like I wrote some other books and I did some other things, and like 10 years later, that book that he wrote 10 years ago becomes this weird cult, following. And then it really gained momentum because of the success of some of his later works. His older book really rose to the top and now is one of the most well-known books that he's written because of the notoriety and kind of flash in the pan of some of his later works. And so even some of the stuff that maybe doesn't have any eyeballs on it right now, producing something good in the future could drive traffic to the older stuff that you're like, man, I wish people would have really read that because I thought it was good.
yeah, agreed. Cool. I feel like we could keep going for a while, but we've been going a while, and I think this might be a good time to cap it. So,
Yeah.
is there anything else you guys wanted to kind of mention regarding the idea of like kind of being only as good as your latest project? No.
Mainly
Not
just
really.
mainly just use that as a positive and not a negative. Like don't use it to beat yourself up, but use it to motivate yourself to keep producing.
Word.
I always worry about advice being used as like a something I can bludgeon myself with, But use it as a motivating factor, not as a demotivating factor. So
We're in a world of grays. This isn't a black and white rule, but it's definitely a good
yeah,
policy to kind of try to live by.
yeah, for sure.
Scott,
And oh,
you were
sorry.
gonna. Oh, okay.
And if you want to check out my stuff, you can go to corykerr.com. If you want to check out this podcast, you can go to corykerr.com/48hr. If you want to check out the stuff that Josh has done very recently, you can go to joshuakemble.com. And Scott Cirkland is available at circworks.com. And so probably if you want to see our most recent stuff, you'll have to look at like YouTube and Instagram because it takes a little while for us to get it up on the site. But go check that out. Let us know what you think in the comments. And I'd like to know in the comments. This is what I'd like to know. What are you guys working on right now? That's what I'm really curious on. Tell me 2 things in the comments. What have you just recently finished, and what are you currently working on? I'm super curious on what our audience is kind of into. So, and I know some of you online, but I don't think I know everybody. And so let us know in the comments, what are you working on right now, and what did you just finish? And we'll see you guys in a couple days.